I didn't see the puppy first. I saw the blanket with the yellow stars. It was lying there on the hot sidewalk by a bus stop in San Diego, California, like it had just fallen out of some kid's bedroom window and landed in the noise. Cars rolled past, brakes squeaked, people checked their phones, and the blanket just sat in the middle of it all. Nobody looked twice. Then I saw the paw. A small, tense paw pressing into the faded fabric, claws curled in, holding on like the blanket was the last solid thing in his world. He was a tiny German Shepherd puppy, maybe 5 months old, folded into himself so tightly you could barely tell where his nose ended and his tail began. He wasn't sleeping. He was trying to disappear. The note caught my eye next. A crumpled scrap of paper pinned to the corner of the blanket with a dull safety pin, edges gone soft from being handled too many times. The handwriting was shaky. Big letters, the kind kids use when they're still figuring out how much space they're allowed to take up. Please keep him safe. He's scared when Dad yells. I read it once. Then I read it again, slower, like the words might change if I gave them a second chance. They didn't. Some kid had walked out here, laid down his blanket of yellow stars, and left his whole heart curled up on top of it. My chest got tight in that stupid way you can't explain. I remember thinking that somebody else would stop, that somebody more qualified would handle it, that maybe I should just keep walking and mind my own business. But there's a line you cross the moment you really see a scared dog. After that, pretending you didn't is just lying to yourself. I told myself I was already late, but I stepped toward the blanket anyway. If you ever find a puppy on a child's blanket, there's only one right thing to do. I took another step toward him, slow enough that even I could hear my own breathing. Up close, I could see his whole body shaking, but it wasn't from cold. Every time a bus hissed, every time a car door slammed, that little German Shepherd puppy flinched like the noise was aimed straight at him. I paused a few feet away, not wanting my shadow to swallow his blanket. He lifted his head just a little, eyes wide and dark, then shrank back when my shoe scraped the concrete. That wasn't a shy dog. That was a dog who'd learned that sound comes before something worse. My name is Russell, and I've seen a lot of scared dogs in my life, but this one hit different. Something about that note pinned to his stars made it feel like I was standing inside somebody else's emergency. I eased myself down into a crouch, then just sat, cross-legged on the hot sidewalk, ignoring the looks from people walking past. No reaching out, no clapping my hands, no "hey buddy" in a big bright voice. If you ever find a rescued puppy like this, you don't rush in with your hands. You give them space, a soft voice, and one clear promise. Nobody's going to yell here. So that's what I did. I just talked, quiet and low, about nothing and everything, letting him hear a man's voice that didn't crack like thunder. After a minute, he shifted. Barely. He slid an inch closer to the edge of the blanket, still curled tight, but not running. I didn't know it yet, but that tiny shuffle on the blanket was the first yes he ever gave a man. I thought food would be the magic word. I was wrong. I had a little packet of treats in my truck, the kind I keep around because you never know. I cracked it open and held one out, arm low, eyes soft, letting the smell drift toward the blanket. He lifted his head, nose twitching, the way only a scared little German Shepherd puppy can when instinct and fear crash into each other. He stretched his neck, just enough to sniff, then froze. His body stayed locked in that tight curl, muscles wired, ready to bolt, even though he had nowhere to go. Watching him, it hit me. This wasn't about hunger. This was about noise and footsteps and voices that came in too fast and too loud. People think you fix a rescued puppy with food first, but the first thing you fix is safety. Warmth and quiet come before treats. So I stopped trying to bribe him. Instead, I slid my hands under the edges of that child's blanket, slow as I could, like I was lifting a sleeping kid. I didn't peel him off of it. I took the whole little universe with me, stars, note, and trembling body all together. I stood up, blanket pressed to my chest, and walked toward my truck. Traffic hummed, a horn barked somewhere far off, and I felt him tense at every new sound. When the car door clicked shut, he flinched so hard I realized this wasn't just a shy puppy. This was a heart trained to expect the worst. My house was quieter than most. But to him, every sound was a threat. I carried the bundle of blanket and bones inside and laid it down in the corner of my living room, where the afternoon light from San Diego still reached the floor. Same child's blanket, same yellow stars, just different walls. That little German Shepherd puppy planted himself on it and refused to move. The rest of the room could have been lava for all he cared. I pulled a chair back from the table and the legs scraped the tile. His whole body jolted like I'd fired a gun. I flipped a light switch and the tiny click made his ears pin flat. The fridge kicked on with a low hum and he watched it like it might start yelling next. It took me a minute to realize I wasn't helping. I caught myself on the phone, talking in that loud "I'm not young anymore" voice, and saw him shrink into the blanket. The TV was droning in the background, some game show with people shouting over nothing. I shut it off mid-sentence. Dogs don't understand your words, but they understand your volume. You don't have to hit to scare a puppy. Sometimes yelling is enough to teach them the world is never safe. So I sat down on the floor next to him, my back against the wall, and stared at those worn yellow stars. He looked like he'd ridden them down out of the sky and crash-landed in my living room. "You look like you fell right out of the sky, little guy," I whispered. "Maybe comet." He didn't know the word, but he knew the tone. One ear flicked. His head lifted a couple inches, and for the first time he turned his face fully toward me. He shifted just a half step closer to the edge of the blanket, like he was thinking about touching the floor. And just like that, one backfire from the street sent Comet right back into his little galaxy of fear. So I started rearranging my life around a 20-pound ball of fear. It was little stuff at first. I stopped tossing my keys on the counter when I came in. That sharp jingle made Comet fold into himself on the blanket. I stopped letting the door slam behind me, caught it with my hand every time, easing it shut like the whole house was made of glass. The TV stayed low or off. Sports could wait. One startled look from that German Shepherd puppy was louder than any game. At the pet store, I stood in front of a wall of toys and realized half of them squeaked like something dying. No thanks. I picked a small, soft star instead, yellow fabric to match his blanket, no noise, no surprises. When I brought it home and set it gently on the edge of his little galaxy, he stared at it like it might explode. Even kindness was suspicious to him. With a scared puppy, you don't force eye contact. You don't drag them out of their corner. You sit down, you get small, and you let them decide when it's safe to come closer. So I sat on the floor a few feet away, back against the wall, and started reading out loud. Nothing poetic. Receipts, an instruction manual, the side of a cereal box. Didn't matter. What mattered was that my voice stayed low and steady, a sound that didn't end in anger. After a while, Comet stretched his neck and nudged the little star with his nose. He flinched at his own courage, then tried again. Slowly, carefully, he pulled the toy all the way onto the blanket, curled his body around it, and watched me over the edge. Then he did something that knocked the air out of me. Never leaving the safety of those yellow stars, he inched the toy closer and closer to where my foot rested on the floor, and left it there. He didn't touch me yet, but he trusted his toy to sit by my foot. And sometimes, that's how healing starts. You'd miss it if you blinked, but I still remember his first step off the stars. It was one of those slow afternoons when the world finally shuts up for a minute. Sunlight was sliding across the living room floor, stopping right at the edge of his blanket. Comet lay there, nose working overtime, sniffing the air like he was checking if the room was still safe. I'd gotten good at being quiet by then. No clattering dishes, no loud phone calls, no hello shouted from the doorway. Just me, this scared German Shepherd puppy, and the soft scrape of his breathing on that child's blanket. He stretched one front paw out, toes just barely touching the hardwood. Then he pulled it back like he'd touched an electric fence. We sat like that for a while, both of us pretending not to notice the war going on in his little head. If you ever work with a rescued puppy like this, don't measure progress in miles. Measure it in inches. One paw off the blanket is a big win. A few minutes later, he tried again. This time the paw stayed. Then came the second one, then a careful shift of his weight, and suddenly he was standing with all 4 feet on the floor, staring at me like, "Now what?" He made a tiny circle around the blanket just once, and then retreated right back to his yellow stars like a diver coming up for air. I didn't clap or cheer. I just slid a little closer and sat beside him, legs stretched out. After a while, he walked over, slow and deliberate, and lowered his head onto my knee. He slept with his head on my leg and his paw on the blanket, like he needed both worlds at once. And I wondered how many nights he'd spent listening to someone shout on the other side of a wall. I couldn't stop thinking about the handwriting on that note. Even after Comet fell asleep with his head on my leg and his paw glued to that blanket, my eyes kept drifting back to the crumpled paper pinned in the corner. The letters were big and uneven, some leaning too far, some barely hanging on the line. Please keep him safe. He's scared when Dad yells. You don't write something like that unless you've heard a lot of yelling. A couple days later, when the house was quiet and that little German Shepherd puppy was dozing in his usual spot, I took a picture. Just the blanket with the yellow stars, the note, and one small paw in the frame. No faces, no street signs, nothing that pointed back to anyone. I posted it in a small local group online with a few simple words, something like, "Found this little guy on a blanket today. He's safe now." No drama, no blaming. Just a snapshot of what a scared rescued puppy looks like when a kid tries to save him. A day or two passed. Then a message popped up from a woman I didn't know. She said she was a teacher at an elementary school nearby. She told me the handwriting on that note looked awfully familiar, but she wasn't going to tell me his name, and I didn't ask. All she wrote was, "He did the hardest thing a kid can do. He let his best friend go to keep him safe. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do for a dog is not to keep them, but to get them out. Kids understand that faster than adults sometimes." Then she asked if she could show her student a picture of Comet in his new place. And for the first time, I realized this story wasn't just about a scared puppy. It was about a scared kid, too. It only took one shout to undo a week of progress. It was a Saturday, windows cracked open to catch a little breeze. Comet was half asleep on his blanket of yellow stars, that soft little German Shepherd puppy sighing in his sleep like he finally believed the world might stay quiet for a while. Then it happened. Somewhere outside, a man snapped. I didn't catch the words, just the sound of a voice going from normal to full volume anger in half a second. It came through the open window like a punch. Comet's eyes flew open. He shot to his feet, scrambled off the blanket, and bolted for the darkest corner he could find, wedging himself under the small table by the wall. By the time I stood up, he was pressed so far back I could barely see him, shaking harder than the first day I found him at that bus stop. I felt it hit me right in the gut. I should have closed the windows. I should have seen it coming. I told myself I'd brought him somewhere safe, and here he was, trapped under my furniture like the yelling had followed him home. If a rescued puppy slips back into old fear, it doesn't mean you failed. Trauma teaches them to survive, not to relax. You just start again, softer. So I didn't reach in after him. I didn't drag him out or beg him to stop shaking. I lay down on the floor beside that table, on my back, staring at the ceiling, and just breathed with him. I lay there on the floor, not asking him to be brave, just promising quietly that the yelling wasn't for him this time. I didn't call his name. I was too afraid to break the moment. I woke up with a stiff neck and a line from the floor molded into my cheek. For a second, I forgot why I'd fallen asleep down there. Then I turned my head and saw the table, and under it, two tired eyes looking back at me. Comet was still wedged in that corner, but the shaking had stopped. He was just watching, like he was trying to decide if the yelling had followed us into the morning. I didn't reach for him. Didn't crook my fingers or pat the floor or say his name in that nervous voice people use when they want a scared German Shepherd puppy to snap out of it. I just rolled onto my side a couple feet away and sat up slowly. We stayed like that for a while, breathing the same quiet air, letting the silence do what all my words couldn't. Eventually he shifted. First his nose came forward, then his shoulders, then this slow, awkward crawl out from under the table. As he moved, I saw the edge of the blanket of yellow stars between his teeth, dragging behind him like a little safety net he refused to leave behind. He crossed the space between us on careful paws, and then, without any ceremony at all, he lowered his head onto my chest and let out this long, shaking sigh. When a scared puppy chooses you again after panic, that's not obedience. That's trust. And trust is the only thing that heals what yelling breaks. I sat there with his weight pressed against me and that blanket bunched under his back, and something in my own chest finally unclenched. If this tiny rescued puppy could fight his way back from that kind of fear just to lie here and believe me again, maybe there was more to this than just our living room. And that's when it hit me. Maybe this wasn't just our little secret. Maybe people needed to hear what this puppy was teaching me. The night he fell asleep without the blanket, I almost cried. It was late, the kind of San Diego quiet where you can still hear a car now and then, but the day has finally let go. The living room lamp was on low, and Comet was doing his usual bedtime routine, circling his little galaxy of yellow stars like a plane lining up for landing. He lay down on the blanket, tucked his nose under his tail, and for a second I thought, yeah, this is just who he is now. Blanket dog forever. Then he paused. He lifted his head, looked over at the couch where my legs were stretched out, and you could almost see the gears turning. Without any invitation from me, that little German Shepherd puppy stood up, stepped off the stars, and hopped onto the couch. The blanket stayed on the floor. He turned twice, bumped my leg with his shoulder, and finally just flopped down with his whole weight across my feet. No paw on the blanket. No safety net. Just me. I sat there, one hand on his back, feeling his breathing slow, thinking how far he'd come from that bus stop and that note. That's the thing about a rescued puppy. You think you're fixing them, but half the time they're the ones fixing you and everyone around you. Somewhere between his third and fourth snore, an idea landed. If Comet could learn to feel safe again, maybe he could help kids who were scared of their own kind of yelling, reading out loud, speaking up, being seen. Not as some official service dog, just as a quiet friend in the room. I messaged his teacher that night and told her what I was thinking. She wrote back, "If he's ready, I know 20 kids who could use a dog like him." They put a tiny chair next to the reading corner. Comet chose the floor beside it. The classroom was quieter than I expected. No one rushed up to him, no squealing, no grabbing at his ears. The kids had been prepped. They sat in a loose half circle with their books, and that brave pup stayed close to my leg at first, eyes wide, tail low, taking it all in. The teacher picked a little boy to start. His voice shook on the first sentence, then steadied when he realized Comet was just listening. No judgment, no sighing, no hurry up. Just a dog on the floor, head tilted, like every word mattered. After a while, Comet eased away from me and slid over to the tiny chair. He sank down beside it, pressed against the front legs. Another kid started to read, softer this time, and Comet laid his head across the boy's sneakers like he was pinning him to courage. Every page turn, every stumble, that rescued puppy just breathed and stayed. When the session was over, the teacher pulled me aside and handed me an envelope. Inside was a drawing from the kid who'd written the note. No name, just crayons. A puppy on a blanket with yellow stars, standing in front of a house with big windows and sunshine pouring out. That night, I sat at my table with Comet curled at my feet and wrote back for him. 3 short lines. He's safe. He's loved. You were brave first. The star blanket lives in the reading corner now, folded on a little shelf. Comet doesn't need it the way he used to, but it's there as a promise, not a shield. Kids watch what we do with our anger. Dogs do too. And both of them remember who finally chose to be gentle. So if one scared kid and one scared puppy can change each other's lives, what could the rest of us do if we actually paid attention? This little story started with a blanket and a note. It didn't end there. Today, Comet doesn't jump at every sound. He still notices the world more than most dogs, but the thunder in his head is quieter now. He has his corner on my couch, his spot on the classroom floor, and a small circle of kids who read out loud while that once terrified puppy breathes beside them like a living reminder that loud doesn't have to mean dangerous. I think a lot these days about what changed him. It wasn't one big heroic moment. It was 100 small choices to lower my voice, move slower, and show up when it would have been easier to walk past. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. People who answer the messages, share the posts, open their doors, they're the ones turning blankets on sidewalks into safe places to sleep. If you ever see a dog in trouble, don't pretend you didn't. Take a picture, make a call, send a message to a local rescue group, offer a ride or a spare blanket if you can, And when you're standing in front of a scared puppy like Comet used to be, remember this. You don't fix fear by yelling at it. You fix it with quiet, with patience, with room to breathe. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. Most nights now, I turn off the light and hear Comet lift his head. He listens for a second, just to make sure no one's shouting. Then he sighs, settles back down at the foot of my bed without reaching for any blanket at all, and finally, completely rests. Thank you so much for watching and staying with us to the end of his story.